Good evening. This is Maestro Cretella with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today we have a 3v3 on Deathworld Temple. Our first player today is ThongSong, playing as the Force Commander, this tanky melee hero sitting right here, capturing the power. He can buff his units with Battlecry, he can also disrupt, and he can punch vehicles. His first teammate is PhatE, playing as the Orc Warboss, yet another tanky melee hero with a lot of similarities to the Force Commander, a lot of similar strengths, as well as, I suppose, similar weaknesses. But he also has some great globals like Use Your Choppers and Ard Boys, a very, very powerful hero in many ways. Right now he's chasing down a sneaky Sorcerer. Finally, on this team, because not finally for the whole game, we have Castle playing as the Chaos Lord. The Chaos Lord is yet another tanky melee hero, so we have Team Tanky Melee Hero on one side, and this is the Chaos Lord. A little bit different from the others. He can do a bit more range damage, especially if you get the Combi Flamer, which people often do. He cannot be knocked down or suppressed, and he can, although he has slower speed to start out, he can get a speed increase from his Worshipping Heretics. Next up, on the other team, we have Lomors playing as the Lord General, because I'm in command, that's why. The Lord General is a support hero, can fight while in ranged or in melee, to be honest, and he's also the only hero who is a squad. So he can bleed, but it also gives him a lot of staying power on the field. Next up, we have Maestro Cretella, just done shooting a volley of Doom Bolts. The Maestro Cretella playing as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer. The Chaos Sorcerer is a spellcasting hero, relies heavily on the usage of abilities, and he's got a lot of good ones, starting out with Doom Bolts, long-range damage and artillery, and some crazier spells later on. Finally, we have kaldoot, playing as the Warp Spider Exarch, teleporting in and out of the warp, fighting heretics in 1 second in melee, and then shooting them up at ranged in the next second. Alright, so over here we actually have, let's see, we got a double sentinel play out of Lomors, and he's attacking from different directions. We also have some heretics in infiltrating the rest of the chaos units. Sorcerer consumes, probably going to shoot off another volley of Doom Bolts. And meanwhile, we already have a very interesting war gear purchase. ThongSong has purchased the Storm Shield, which gives him the defend ability, which you can see it activated right there. Whenever you see those blue circles around all those units, that is a damage reduction aura for all of those squads. Damage reduction as well as suppression immunity. It does decrease their speed when he does that, but I mean, for the benefits that it gives, it can be very, very powerful. Especially considering we're already talking about units, especially for the Space Marines, Tactical Marines, which are already very tanky. And now we actually have a triple Sentinel play from Lomors. This is a build that is a lot of range firepower, a lot of mobile range firepower, not even going to bleed a whole lot. And we have a Havoc now out. We're committing a lot of units just to taking out this one Force Commander. Lomors is asking me for repairs, although at this point in the game I did not really get what he meant when he just said rep. Ooh, and these heretics in a lot of trouble. I think came around for a bit of a flank, down to 2 models. And we have some shooter boys chasing after these heretics, taking them out, getting very, very close, and survives with 1 health. All right, now back over here on this side, we see kaldoot. He's got his Howling Banshees out, and he actually ties up the Havoc so that it can't do anything, which is one of the things that can be very, very tough. Ooh, and Grenade Launcher Heretics taking shots on this Guardian Weapon team, but that's one of the things that can be tough about trying to use a suppression team against the Warp Spider Exarch. You have your setup team counter. Oh my god! And that grenade just fully wiped that Grenade Launcher Heretic squad. But you have your setup team counter right out of the gate. Don't even need to purchase one because you have a Warp Spider Exarch who can teleport. As it is, we have some assistance from PhatE going for that Guardian Weapon team, but ultimately not a win engagement for PhatE either. Meanwhile, Lomors is going for a bit of a power bash. Not bashing too much, though, with his Sentinels. They're not that powerful, but still bashing power. He does have quite a few Sentinels. He also already has the grenade launcher on his Lord General, which is an interesting war gear. It is a grenade launcher, so it can be very, very powerful as area of effect damage. Although I would say the Lord General's grenade launchers are not really as good as the other grenade launchers you can get in this game, such as on Heretics or on the Inquisitorial Stormtroopers. Meanwhile, over here we have this Havoc suppressing. Unfortunately, there are a lot of squads right here, and I think PhatE might just be able to get on all my stuff, except for the fact that I have the second Havoc in the back. He's not going to be able to. His Warboss, it really isn't going to be able to do much, and I have some Doom Bolts devastating those shooter boys. Warboss has to go. Now I'm in a lot of trouble with these scouts coming right here, but the scouts, they tried to go for my. They probably tried to go for my Havoc, but my Havoc just retreated out of there. I think we're on the better end of this engagement, and triple Sentinels, I think, will actually pretty much counter Devastator Marines. And the Devastators just have to get out of there. Shooter boys also getting hit really, really hard, as well as the Tactical Marines by those Doom Bolts. So, interesting builds all around, or probably mostly from me and Lomors. Lomors with this triple Sentinel. I have a very traditional Chaos build of getting the 2 Heretics, the 1 CSM, and the Havoc, but I threw on a second Havoc on top of that. In part to deal with the Warboss, and in part just because I like to do it. Meanwhile, I tried to capture with some Chaos Space Marines, but they got chased down by Slugger Boys, so I baited them into the firing arc, and PhatE just has to retreat out of there. Meanwhile, back on this side, we see kaldoot going with a very lean build. He's going for just the Dire Avenger into the Banshee and the Shuriken, which is not entirely uncommon, and I've actually heard people say, I think Tex has said that the Warp Spider Exarch is a hero who can go with shorter builds, although he may have been applying that more to 1v1, although that might still carry over into teams. Alright, back here we see the Warboss again getting suppressed by that Havoc. And it is going to be a lot tougher for the Warboss to do what he wants with 2 Havocs around. So, triple cap for the red team now. So, a significant VP lead. But it looks like Castle has managed to chase kaldoot off the field. He needs to start capturing these points, though. Good idea to put the Havoc behind the energy shield, going to give them 100% damage resistance, but he needs to start capturing that point. Meanwhile, over here, I have some more suppression going down, coming very, very close to taking out those Devastators. I think I actually sigiled them with the Sigil of the Rift. Didn't quite catch it, and I'm not going to take out that Devastator, quite unfortunately for me, and quite fortunately for PhatE. PhatE in Tier 2, going for some Stick Bombers. And I'm actually going to Tier 2. I'm the last person that gets to Tier 2, though, in part because I had the longest build. And a lot of friendly fire from all those missiles on Lomors, on his own Lord General. But Lomors has a huge area of effect damage build with the Lord General with his grenade launchers, as well as these triple Sentinels with missile launchers. And I'm actually surprised to see missile launchers on every single one of those guys. Let's go back over here, see what's going on with, ooh, this is not good. That's going to be the Chaos Lord going down for Castle. We now have Warp Spiders out on the field doing massive range damage, and I think Castle in a little bit of trouble. He has this Havoc, but it's, yeah, just going to get jumped, and that just means that the Howling Banshees can get in for free. And, Castle does have some support in the form of his Heretics. Maybe get his second Heretic squad to join in there. Needed some Doom Blast, I think, from those Heretics, and I think he needed both of those Heretics on top of those Banshees. I mean, just part of what you do against Banshees as Chaos is you just pile Heretics on them. You just pile Heretics on them. It doesn't even sound like a strategy, but you just pile Heretics on top. Meanwhile, ThongSong lost a Scout Squad, didn't catch that. But kaldoot now very well established on the right side, and I think he's gonna get a full Gen Bash off with the huge amount of range fire coming out of these Warp Spiders, the Dire Avengers, as well as, well, Banshee's not doing range fire. But now we have a flank from PhatE on Lomors. I'm gonna respond a bit, trying to get in on PhatE. Setting up my Havoc, not in such a great position. Oh, that's really, really bad for those guardsmen, but they do get out of there. There's a Foot of Gork! And I'm trying to go past it. Oh. And, yeah, look at all those Heretic bodies flying. So I kind of just walked right into it. I was kind of hoping that I would just be able to run right past it, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out that way for me. And there goes that defend ability on the Force Commander, and they're just completely ignoring suppression. Goes a grenade on my Havoc. And this is definitely getting pushed back into my base. Meanwhile, we got the Warp Spider Exarch goes down for kaldoot. Castle kind of answering back. He does have grenade launchers on these heretics now. But he's got to be very, very careful. He's going to lose another squad of grenade launcher heretics if he is not careful. Ooh, Warp Spiders teleport away, but not before they get suppressed by Doom Blast. Castle now actually in a lot of trouble. He's going to lose his melee heretics at 16 health. He's going to lose them. They're chasing after him. Oh, he's going to lose them, definitely. Just the Warp Spiders just need to shoot. And yeah, they take out those melee heretics. Meanwhile, back over here, we have PhatE and ThongSong starting to be extremely, extremely oppressive now with that defend ability. Actually take out quite a bit of power. And we actually kind of have them pincered. I have some heretics that went through the warp. Not a good teleport on my part. Meanwhile, over here, I have some Chaos Space Marines just going for a back cap, but getting hit by some stick bombers. Need to get out of there before they get swarmed by those Slugger Boys. Probably still going to lose a model, except for the fact that we had some friendly fire from that weird boy. And I actually get those Chaos Space Marines out of there without losing a single model. Lomors, meanwhile, still with all three of his Sentinels alive, still has the Guardsmen, and is actually going to Tier 3, I believe. I think he's already in Tier 3. Meanwhile, ThongSong has this Assault Cannon Dreadnought. Oh, and very, very nice to use that Plasma Cannon at maximum range to bombard this this bunker. Probably going to take it out. Only one more shot. That'll probably be a dead bunker right then and there. Just needs to get one more shot off. And there goes the bunker, I think. Yep, there goes the bunker. Especially since that Plasma Cannon was focusing on the bunker, and the Sentinels were not focusing on the Plasma Cannon. Instead, they were going after the Dreadnought. Meanwhile, I'm getting hit hard by PhatE. I think I was doing well against him in Tier 1 when I had my suppression teams countering that Warboss, but I think now he's doing quite a bit better against me. I have some heretics flanking by going in through the warp. Unfortunately, they don't do much, just get a little Doom Blast off. And I'm just answering back a little bit, but I think PhatE actually has me pretty well countered between stick bombers as well as the weird boy to counter my suppression teams. Lomors right here sets up a new repair bunker. He kind of needs it for all his Sentinels, but that Plasma Cannon, such a great answer to a bunker. Meanwhile, back over here, we have PhatE trying to help out Castle, who has suffered a lot of losses. This is actually probably going to be the end of these Slugger Boys with just all this range fire. Oh, what are they doing? Oh, and he tries to use Ard Boys to save him, but doesn't save him. So PhatE suffering quite a bit now. And a Manticore strike now from Lomors. Oh, he's actually still in Tier 2. I think he was going to Tier 3, but he must have canceled it to get Stormtroopers as well as the Manticore. Meanwhile, I'm still having a little bit of trouble, I think, with PhatE throwing all those stick bombs on me. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to split up all my units, having my Havocs in different spots, having my Heretics go in different directions. It's still not quite working out that well for me. I at least managed to get one squad to retreat. And I still have my Havocs in play. Where is my Sorcerer? Just back there. We're actually getting pushed back quite a bit now, and it's actually the blue team that has the triple cap. But the Warboss needs to get out of there. Castle's still getting hit pretty hard. Needs to get something new. He's getting a new Havoc, which maybe not such a great idea against that teleporting Warp Spider Exarch now, especially with Warp Spiders as well. And there goes some more missiles. Unfortunately, the missiles seem to miss a bit when you're shooting at different elevations. And you kind of have to adjust by attacking ground and attacking a different spot. Anyway, I'm back out here trying to deal with PhatE, just trying straight up, just hard approaching with my Heretics, but that does allow my Havocs to set up a little bit more easily. And we actually do get some suppression off. Maybe some Doom Bolts. Will I shoot some Doom Bolts? Yes, I will. And the Heretics get in. Now, I actually went straight to Tier 3. I replaced my Heretic squad. I wanted another Heretic, but did not get any actual Tier 2 units, and I'm going straight for a Great Unclean One. Meanwhile, it's now actually ThongSong, who's pretty well established on this side. He's actually stolen the bunker, using it for his own purposes. He can actually heal his Dreadnought with that bunker, I believe. And that Dreadnought, I guess, has been pretty tough for Lomors. He's kept all of his Sentinels alive, nevertheless. Kaldoot still seems to be doing very, very well in this lane, but we now finally have Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines from Castle, which I think is a good choice, since he actually needs that to provide kind of comparable range fire to the Warp Spiders so that he can actually compete with them in range. And as the Warp Spiders tried to tie up the Chaos Space Marines, which is actually a bad idea. So that is one of the advantages of the Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines. They do actually counter Warp Spiders both in melee and in ranged. Since they do not quite as much damage as the Warp Spiders, but they also tank a lot more damage because they have bigger health pools as well as having that heavy infantry armor. And something died over here. Oh, a Guardsman squad died from Lomors. But now the Great Unclean One is out on the field. And now, this time, Lomors actually communicates, oh, he wants me to repair with Heretics, and I actually got it this time. So I have a Great Unclean One just kind of standing around doing nothing, waiting for some support. Does manage to get a Vomit off, kills 3. I think kills 3 out of those 4 stick bombers. And this is an interesting situation because my Great Unclean One is, I mean, it's technically a melee unit, and it's being hit by a lot of range fire, and it can't really compete in ranged, but it can tank a lot of damage and distract a lot of my other, all those Orc squads from shooting at my other units. Meanwhile, Havoc's still suppressing, and over here we see more missile launcher Sentinels. There, the Lord General goes down, and I think this bunker will go down as well, but the Plasma Cannon Devastators miss. Alright. And there's another Foot of Gork, and my Chaos Space Marine's in a lot of trouble, actually. Foot of Gork actually works on units that are in retreat, even knocks back units that are in retreat. Las Cannon, meanwhile, taking shots, and here's the Warp Global to teleport the Las Cannon to get closer, because that looted tank was just about to get out of the Las Cannon firing arc. As it is, it's still getting very, very close to getting out of that firing arc, but I just managed to get it right before it finishes. Lomors now suffering some losses, down to 2 Sentinels, but still very, very impressive to keep this many Sentinels alive that late into the game. Manticore in a little bit of trouble. Meanwhile, back over here, Castle now has a Chaos Predator of his own, and Kaldoot may be struggling a little bit with that. Might want to give up, get some Bright Lance on his Guardian weapon team. It has, of course, been doing very, very well. On my own side of things, I got double suppression teams in part because I had the flexibility of getting that Las Cannon without losing suppression entirely. Meanwhile, back over here, Great Unclean One. Gonna pressure this Dreadnought to get the hell out of there. And the Las Cannon maybe gonna start taking shots. Unfortunately, I'm not there to teleport it again. So I think, yeah, so now the Dreadnought has broken line of sight from those Havocs. So it is going to get out of there alive, but the Great Unclean One's still applying quite a bit of pressure. Even when it's not actually doing damage, it can really apply a lot of pressure just by walking forward. Unfortunately, the Predator goes down there for Castle, and he loses Grenade Launcher Heretics, down to just a CSM squad and a Havoc squad again. Unfortunately for him, I mean, I guess the Bright Lance wasn't necessary just because he had this Avatar. He did, of course, have the snare from the Warp Spiders. Meanwhile, back over here, the VPs have gotten very, very close. The red team started out with a very big VP lead, and then the blue team really, really caught up, and they actually have the double cap right now. And I'm just trying to get away from all those stick bombs. And then, I mean, just look at my Great Unclean One. It's not even actually doing damage to all these units right now, but it's just pressuring by just walking forward. And now he's shooting at it, and that also means that he's not shooting at the rest of my units. The Great Unclean One, I believe, did get stunned there. by those stun bombs. And I think now I'm just not moving it, and I think now I'm just not microing. Ooh, and some nice support from that Manticore. I'm actually infiltrated the Great Unclean One, almost to try and heal it a bit. Meanwhile, I tried to go for a cap over here, but a little too much coming out of ThongSong right now, and a late-game tech squad as well, which I don't think is a bad idea. I think there are definitely some merits to doing that. But ThongSong doing a very good job to hold this side, and meanwhile, kaldoot doing a very good job to hold this side. Las Cannon, double Las Cannon Havocs as a way to deal with this avatar, and I mean, technically, Castle has a lot in terms of things he can use to damage and snare that avatar, but he's just having trouble dealing with the rest of the army. And that is part of the strength of some of these super units, and specifically the Great Unclean One and the Avatar, which is that they just put so much pressure just by walking forward, because now you're shooting at the Avatar with like your entire army and not shooting at the rest of your opponent's army. And if you don't do anything about the Avatar, then the Avatar or the Great Unclean One actually just gets to walk forward and start attacking you. So Great Unclean One over here, again, kind of operating alone, does a stomp, unfortunately misses entirely. PhatE paying attention and just kind of retreats away with those Slugger Boys. And the Great Unclean One, I think, when he's definitely a unit, when his abilities are on cooldown, he's a lot less threatening otherwise, but I think one of the great things about this Great Unclean One is that, at least right now, PhatE does not really have great sources of damage. Orcs, of course, rely a lot on those Shooter Boys, but they don't scale as well against a unit like a Great Unclean One. Oh, that's such a nice vomit. Because the Great Unclean One, with that super heavy infantry armor, will be resisting 70% of the damage coming from those Shooter Boys. You know, that's not the Chaos Lord. Those are Chaos Terminators out from Castle. Potentially a good choice, but they still need to be very, very careful. They will also counter the... They will actually counter... Ooh, and there goes the heavy turret. They will counter the Warp Spiders very, very hard, but they still need to be careful about that Avatar, which they will not counter very hard. Or they will, frankly, not counter the Avatar, at least not with their Storm Bolters. Or their Twin Link Bolters. Alright, so a Predator went down from ThongSong, a combination of those Sentinel missiles as well as my Havoc. And this is a tough situation. My Chaos Havocs need to get out of there, but I think the support I'm getting from ThongSong will be enough to scare these Slugger Boys off, and they do get out of there. 104 to 91. Blue team has taken the lead in VPs. And Castle going for trying to capture this side, but kaldoot has had such a strong hold on it. And now he's just getting his Chaos Space Marines suppressed. I don't think it's a good idea for him to just capture under pressure. He might actually get the decap off, but I think he's going to start taking losses on this Chaos Space Marine squad. Alright, oh, this is my Imperial Abyss! And I just decided I just want to just deny that VP, and I also just wiped that Chaos Space Marine squad. Which was nice, because, I mean, Castle had the choice of just retreat out of there. He probably should have just retreated out of there to save his Chaos Space Marine squad. But Lehman Russ now out for Lomors, has the elite tank crew, but has otherwise kept the default battle cannon, which is a nice compromise between the anti-infantry firepower of the Executioner and the anti-vehicle firepower of the Vanquisher. You really get both. Right here you can see I'm using Sigil of the Rift just to pull the Warboss off the cap. And I need to be very careful. I'm just trying to run out of there so that my heretics are not getting blasted by all those stick bombs. And I do manage to dodge all those stick bombs. And now the Havoc in the back, just suppressing that Warboss. Should start suppressing some of these other units as well. And here we go with a subjugated Weird Boy who goes for a Warp Vomit on the entire Orc army. Which is really cool, although when I think about it, it didn't actually do much. I didn't actually gain much out of stunning that entire Orc army. It just looked really cool, and I doubt PhatE was expecting that. Anyway, Castle now still now gaining a bit of a hold on this VP, in part because the Avatar is committed over to the middle, and the Chaos Terminators actually will do very well to counter many of the Eldar squads. I mean, as it is, we have Warp Spiders that are nearly dead. Yeah, and the War Spiders had to go. Oh, but this is bad. He can't stay too long against that Fire Prism. Does do Plasma Cannon damage, so it will actually do bonus damage to those Terminators. Great Unclean One staying in here, even with not a whole lot of health, trying to get it to infiltrate and worship so that it's... Here we go with an Eldritch Storm, though, from kaldoot. Doesn't seem like it's actually going to do that much. In fact, mostly misses. But it's buying us time at this point to come back on VPs. That looked like it did nothing. And the Great Unclean One low on health, but again, just threatening just by being there, which is, I think, one of the advantages, again, of the Great Unclean One as well as the Avatar. And, like, I was actually wondering, some of my Great Unclean One use in this game, like, I feel like I'm just standing there and my Great Unclean One's not actually doing anything. And I wondered if a Phobos would have been better. But, I mean, as it is, I think it still worked out. There we go with a, the Great Unclean One's Flesh Hook ability, Foul Snare, that's what it's called. For some reason, I always forget what that's called. And there we go, and now I'm using Sigil of the Rift again, and what I'm doing is just denying the VP at this point. I don't even need a follow-up for either of those, I'm just denying the VP. Alright, and it actually looks like the game is actually going to end in favor of the red team. And that is it. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.